Morning, everybody. Crappy Mondays, and welcome to the news agenda with me, Fleet Street Fox. And today I'm joined by my fellow Mirror columnist and associate editor, Kevin Maguire, who is up there in red trouser land at Manchester Tory conference. Our sympathies are with you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Review. So get into the comments, ask us your questions. Those of you listening later on podcast will just have to open a window and yell at Liz Truss. Good luck with that. Now, what have we got for you today? Well, the Mirror has splashed on an open letter calling on the Prime Minister to do the right thing and give free school meals to all primary school pupils. It's been signed by a host of celebrities, including Brian Cox, Kate Winslet, Ed Sheeran, Olivia Colman. Elton John's kept his name off it for some reason, who all say that hungry children can't learn and free school meals is the best way to level up and make sure every child can succeed. Kevin, the question is, I suppose, is this going to make the tiniest amount of difference to a man whose personal wealth dropped by 500 grand a day last year and he still didn't notice it?
No, I don't think it will, actually. I think it's the right cause. Free school meals for all primary school kids in England. In fact, I'd extended to secondary as well. Wales and Scotland are bringing in their own schemes. Parts of England have it already. London, for instance, the Labour Mayor Sadiq Khan, a few of the cities have taken action. But the case, it's a heavyweight list of stars who are all engaged socially and politically, including Ed Sheeran and Olivia Colman, as you say, Kate Winslet. And I think the case, they just put, one, there's a cost of living crisis, so it will help all parents, because at the moment, free school meals, if you're on more than £7,400 a year, your kid doesn't qualify. So you could be on universal credit, really pretty poor, pretty hard up, and you don't qualify. So a lot of those kids, so it'll help in a cost of living crisis, but it'll also help all those you could be on a reasonable working class, middle class wage, but you're still feeling the pinch. But secondly, they point out that any teacher, support staff, and parents too will tell you that a hungry kid ain't gonna focus and concentrate at school. They're going to do less well, and in the long term, that'll hit the economy. It's not just going to hit them individually, which is a tragedy. It'll hit us all. But no, I don't think it will. Sunak closed his ears to it. In the interest of political fairness and objectivity, point out that Keir Starmer and Labour at the moment are not committed to this policy. He's resisting too. Cost about £1 billion. Well, as the Mirror points out, that's 1/7 of the inheritance tax cut they're toying with for the very, very wealthiest 1 in 25.
Yeah, exactly. Now, speaking of someone whose child has just gone into year 3, I think as well, what's happening is, because this seems to be sort of somehow subsidising the freer food for down the younger years that do get free school meals for reception year 1 and year 2. So I think in some schools, what's happening is, because I'm being asked like £2.50 a day to feed my daughter at school. Now, the food that she's getting is not worth £2.50 a day, and I'm not spending that every day anyway. So she's going with a packed lunch sometimes. But I'm sure that is how the school is balancing its books to help fund those the younger years who are getting it free. And therefore you're paying more anyway. And so it's kind of a bit ridiculous. And there's £1 billion there, like you were saying, that can go into the economy and pay bills and do other things and generate other cash. It's not like it's just money down the drain, is it?
No, that's absolutely right. And of course, free school meals for your years 1 and 2. What infant schools are back in old money. In my day, that was brought in by the coalition government, the Condem coalition government, or a few good things it did. The Lib Dems pushed for that, and it just seems almost crazy to me that infant schools, it's free. Then you go to primary, year 3, you're a couple of months older, and then all of a sudden you've got to pay £2.50 a day, as you say, which is about the going rate. That's £12.50 a week. Somebody's got 2 kids at school. You did the maths very quickly. That's 25 quid a week, or you're talking about £100 a month. That's a lot of readies. That's a lot of cash that people will find who just don't qualify. There's about 2 million kids in England do qualify for free school meals, which is now 1 in 3 because child poverty is going up. But there are people just over that level, the 7,400, who don't qualify and are really feeling the pinch. So it will be a big help to them. I think it's what type of society, what type of country do you want to live in? And I think a country whereby we all pay tax and we all get something out is a good one. So someone will always say, well, the millionaires will get a free school meal. Well, there's not many of them, and I don't begrudge them. What I'm probably more anxious about is if that millionaire is dodging their tax.
Exactly. That makes a difference, doesn't it? Now, what do you think, everybody? Do you think free school meals should be rolled out for everyone in primary school, or is that a bit much? Is it asking a lot to start feeding other people's children as well? And it's a parent's responsibility. What do you think? Get into the comments and let us know. Now, the story is reporting there that more than 4 million children live in homes without proper access to food. And that means that those families have reported skipping meals, eating less, going hungry just to make ends meet, perhaps feeding the kids but not having food themselves. And that's, after 13 years of Tory government and levelling up, apparently. Now, only children, Leanne says, morning, let the children eat, for God's sake. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Now, as we were saying, only children in reception in year 1 and 2 get their school meals for free. After that, you need to be on benefits. And many of those families that are skipping meals aren't on those benefits. Sarah says free school and college meals up to the age of 18. People do seem to think, Kevin, that this is the way that, that it's not just free food. It's giving those 4 million parents some money back. It's putting money back into the economy, and it's creating children that learn better and have more fuel in their bodies, which makes them healthier. You limit trips to hospital, you grow the economy, they get better education, they get better qualifications, they're wealthier in the long run. Is it the fact you think that it's the long run that is the problem here? Because there is no immediate benefit to someone for doing it. There, maybe 20 years before you see the results, and that's why they're not doing it.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win-win. But I think you'd also win votes if you did this. You put it in a manifesto. I think it's just whether there's the political will to do it. That's what it's all about. You're quite right. To see the real benefits, you need kids to go through and be fed next to a trial group that weren't being fed really to show the benefits, which would be a bit cruel. But yeah, you'd get you announce it, you'll get an instant plus. But again, I just think I want to live in a country where we all pay in, we all get out, and everybody's looked after. Yep, you work if you can, you pay, make work pay itself, but you have a decent education system, a decent health system, a decent welfare state, you have a law and order system that works. All these things aren't working in a Britain that you could call it broken, or it's just breaking, and it could just be a better Britain. And I think in education, it's just a no-brainer. I mean, that is it. There's study after study showing hungry kids suffer at school, and so their lives are blighted, they're held back, and that's a personal tragedy for each one of them. But collectively, it shames us, and we all end up paying because those kids won't be as engaged and productive going down the line as they would have been if we'd have fed them. Yeah, and I get annoyed with Starmer on this as well, because he won't do it. And Bridget Phillipson, the Shadow Education Secretary, she was a free school meals kid herself at school. Lone parent, solo parent family, done incredibly well, a great success story. She wasn't born with a silver spoon or anything in her mouth. Nor was Starmer, although there was a bit more money in his house. I suppose the problem there was his mother, the nurse, had that terrible Still's disease, which must have really been very difficult to cope with as a child. But Bridget Phillipson, the Labour Shadow Education Secretary, won't advocate free school meals for all, because they're worried about, well, if you're going to spend money, you'll have to show how you're going to pay for it, and they're really worried about that. But I think you've got to be bold and visionary. Yeah, and the governments always find money in budgets when they want to spend it. That's what I mean, the idea there's just this finite amount of money isn't true. It's not like a household budget. It just isn't the case.
No, the Bank of England just prints more money when they tell it to. That's how things work. Now,
Yeah.
I always thought that the part of the reason why we have issues like this is because the people who are making the decisions are those who have never had to find themselves at the till and have to put something back on the shelf 57 pence short. And that's kind of the situation that we're in. I mean, Mark, he was saying there he was a free school meals kid between 83 and 88, had free school meals. Deb was saying everyone should have the free school meals. It doesn't seem to be an issue as far as voters are concerned, and that's something they object to, and everyone can see the benefit. And it must be the way of doing the maths, just to say, well, look, we spend this now, we get back X in 10 years. There must be something in a calculation somewhere they can do that would keep the city happy, and they could therefore make the policy. No one seems to want to.
I think there is my starting point is there is a moral argument for it, particularly all those people who are just over the breadline and just don't qualify. You know, you've got an income in the house of just over 7,400, which is what, about 150 quid a week. Just it's around. It's not a king's ransom by any means, but I think there's a moral argument because those kids in particular are going hungry. The wider economic argument and helping the cost of living crisis, all those families who were once doing okay, maybe on the average wage of 31,000, but now they've felt the squeeze, and in the next election they're going to be worse off than they were at the last election. I think there's a real case to help them. But I just come back to this philosophical argument. I just really feel it is so much better if all kids are fed. You don't then divide them. Which I think there's sometimes a bit of a stigma still around free school meals. Kids can be pretty cruel with each other, but it'll help middle class families, and they get them to pay their taxes and get something out. It's what type of welfare state do you want? I'm afraid the Tories are just going for reducing it. I want the welfare state expanded. Yeah, so we're all looked after.
People seem to be in favour of it. Mike was saying there, I'm sure that 30p Lee will soon be explaining how parents can feed their children for less. Leanne was saying that we're right, and it's just a no-brainer. It should be happening. We have to just wait and see, won't we? But if they're prepared to spend £169,000 a head deporting people to Rwanda and being unkind, then I suspect spending £2.50 for a hungry child is probably a bit.
But 30p Lee, that'll be Lee Anderson, the Tory MP up in Nottinghamshire, very right wing, who of course claimed that people could cook meals for 30p. I also remember when he said MP shouldn't take double jobs, and now he's got 100 grand job on top of his 85 grand parliamentary salary with GB News. He could cook for 100 grand, 30p for a meal. That's about 333,000 meals he could cook with his 100 grand.
That's probably a good Monday's meal for everybody. I should think at the schools that'll be handy, wouldn't it? And questions, everybody, because one thing we're going to talk about next, and of course we're at Tory conference, and that's really the main story of the day, to be frank, in Manchester. Now, last year, if anyone can remember back this far, it was a chaotic bloodbath because Liz Truss was Prime Minister. The Queen had just died. I think she had just made or was just about to make them their fairly awful budget announcements. And the economy was collapsing around her ears. And the whole party that was there was busy telling anyone who'd listen they'd have to get her out. It was just a mess last year. Now, Kevin, you're there this year. So what's the atmosphere like this time with their bright new hope, Rishi Sunak, who's going to solve all their problems?
Oh, there's an air of defeat, resignation. I think, in truth, it's like being at a wake. I think they know they're done for. Sunak's trying to bang the drum, trying to gee them up, but you can see they're all jockeying. Those contenders. Michael Gove will talk about tax cuts. Well, they don't want him talking about tax cuts, and certainly not the taxes he wants to cut, because they want to cut other taxes. And Suella Braverman is just getting more and more bigoted. You see, Kemi Badenoch wants to stop the world so Little Britain could get off and join Russia and Belarus outside the European Convention of Human Rights. Everywhere you look, they think, well, he's gone. Who's going to be the leader next time? Who's going to be the Queen or King? Who's going to be the Queen or Kingmaker? It's also got to be said, it isn't only HS2 that will be coming to Manchester. There's a lot of Tories not coming to Manchester. It's not very big. Truss might be the big draw later today because she's in town and she's utterly shameful and shameless. She's going to make yet another speech justifying what she did and proved to be disastrous. And I was right to her. She's speaking again, so I'll pop along at lunchtime to enjoy it. It's just imagine like a show with the Muppets, and they all go in and they're all mad and
make sure there's plenty of acid in your pen. Because I think we need it. Now, what do you think, everybody? Do you agree with Kevin? Is this a dying party and they're just holding a wake, or can they somehow find a way back to it? Other papers were reporting over the weekend there is a path to victory for Rishi if he just does X, Y, and Z. But the A, B, and C seem to be defeating him rather than.
Yeah, Foxy, I'm not sure it's as wide as a path, even a narrow path. I think it's more like a tightrope. It's probably about that way. And I think going along gingerly. I mean, I suppose if the general election is going to be around this time next year, some people think it could be May. I think it's more likely to be next autumn. That does make 50 odd of Harold Wilson's long weeks in politics when Harold Macmillan's events can occur to try and save them. But the die feels a little cast. People thinking, well, they're done, they're spent, as Louise Casey, a peer who's an independent peer but now leans towards Labour, said yesterday. And chatting to Tory MPs, what they fear on the doorstep is people saying, well, you've had 13 years. If you've not fixed the problem now, you're not going to do it, and then you're the problem. And that is difficult for them to answer unless Labour and Starmer implode in some way. But there's no sign of that at the moment.
No, they seem to be pottering along, don't they? Lynn says if childcare wasn't so expensive, a lot more mums would go to work. Spending £1,000 a month on childcare is very ridiculous. You're right. And of course, getting mums to work is a benefit to everybody. Yep. Now, as you say in today's paper, the Tories are basically holding this wake. And I think even the most ardent supporter of the Conservatives, do we have any who watch this show? I don't know. They might have all left by now. But they have to admit, there's one wing saying we need to have more tax cuts, and another wing saying, oh, we can't afford to do that. There's one wing saying HS2 is just too expensive. We need to cut it. It'll be HS1 and a bit. And the other wing going saying, no, you just have to do Northern Powerhouse Rail. And of course, it's all happening, this conference, during the longest strike by junior doctors and consultants in NHS history. And there's train strikes too, still staggering along, making it difficult for people. So Liz Truss is going to be appearing at this event about 12:30 this afternoon, in which she's going to be saying that they just need to make all the tax cuts that she promised last time, and that honestly, it'll all work out fine. Why, Kevin? Why doesn't she get it? How can anyone stand in the middle of that china shop with all the bits on the floor around her and then go, well, this was the best possible idea? Yeah,
right. On a human level, you wonder if she just confronted the enormity of a personal disaster, being the briefest prime minister in history. 49 days she managed to make in the end, and how it all went wrong. Maybe you collapse. Maybe you just have to keep saying I was right. But I think she's ideological. She's just an ideologue, and she just really believes in all this nonsense she's spouting. And that there are people who will invite her abroad to give her lots of money to hear her. She'll speak for free today. I mean, I think I'd rather chip in not to hear her, and get her silence. But it's just, you get it across politics. I suppose you get it in all walks of life too. People just say I'm right, even when there is verifiable evidence, facts that will just contradict you and prove you are wrong. She just plows on. There's like a touch of madness there, isn't there?
Yeah, well, it's just, you do get it across all sort of parts of politics, like you say. But the idea of just being able to go, not having the self-awareness to go, do you know what? I might keep my head down for a bit and go and do something else for a while, and let this one blow over and everyone's forgotten about it. I doubt she's going to improve the Tories' prospects at all when she did her thing today. But I mean, what do you think, everybody? Do you think Liz Truss was right? Do you think we do need tax cuts? Is the tax burden too high? Bear in mind, if you have tax cuts, you've got to have cuts. You've got to cut something to pay for that. And what are you going to cut? Because everything's got a pothole in it. John says she's doing a comedy act. Possibly. Maybe she's being paid by Keir Starmer to bring them down. Who knows? But she's certainly going to get some coverage, isn't she, Kevin?
Oh yeah, and she doesn't do comedy. She's got no sense of humour. In fact, she was really put out. It was the Daily Star newspaper that put a lettuce on the front. Remember, which will last longest, the lettuce or Liz turned out to be the lettuce. She actually said she just did not find that very funny. Now, most politicians, you might not find it funny being compared to a lettuce, but you'd pretend it was funny. You'd want to laugh.
You've got to find a way. And I do hope, Kevin, that the Mirror's chicken outfit has been switched for a lettuce, and there's going to be someone at this event today dressed as a human lettuce.
Yeah, I'm afraid I think the chicken's in its coop and not been seen for some time. But you know what rivalry is in media organisations, because the Daily Star had the lettuce, and there's no way the Mirror is going to embrace.
They're not going to let that one out, are they? No. Well, I hope the lettuce.
I mean, you and I might.
I hope the lettuce makes sense.
I think Starmer should set up a group Labour for Liz and keep campaigning for her, because she's a great asset for Labour.
Yeah, she works very well. Now, Mike says there'll probably be a bigger audience for Liz's intervention than at the main stage. The main stage has been pretty empty, hasn't it, Kevin? They haven't been talking about very much. We've had that story there. It's been flashed up. There's more issues about HS2, which Rishi's having to face. Yeah. When he makes his speech, he's got Suella Braverman positioning herself for the job of Reichsführer. He's got Kemi Badenoch spouting off, Michael Gove, taxes. Now, as your prime minister, you want your team, your top team, all singing from the same hymn sheet. But has he noticed that they're positioning themselves to take his job? Is he giving any indication? I mean, he just seems to be blindly blathering on that he can definitely win and everything's fine.
Yeah. He must know. Certainly the team around him will know. But are you strong enough to confront them? Are you strong enough to impose discipline? Are you strong enough to tell them no? And if they keep on doing it, are you strong enough to sack them? And the answer to all those is no. He's not. He's too weak, and he's just not strong enough. You can't take the row. But you mentioned the main stage in Manchester Central, they call it, which is a wonderful conference area. They've got a big hall they used to use. They don't use it anymore. They've built where they used to put the press, the media, or scribblers. They've built a new internal hall there, and which is much smaller, and even that isn't full, and there are just loads of empty seats for these so-called big speeches. It's a party with far fewer members than it used to have. Many of those that exist are dead, or nearly dead, and then those who can walk and talk don't want to spend the expense and come here because it's just not buzzy.
Yeah, so, and a lot of members are sort of a bit adrift from what the party's doing. The party, a lot of those in government sort of drifting further and further to the right, and the grassroots are the normal Middle Englanders, fairly centrist, to go, no,
they're not actually. No, so remember, Foxy, they voted for Liz Truss to be their leader. She was their robot, their experiment, and it went. Yeah, they rejected this. Summer of last year, they rejected Rishi Sunak, and it was only when Truss imploded, the choice of the Tory grassroots imploded, the choice of Tory MPs imploded. They did a dodgy deal whereby Sunak was imposed on us as Prime Minister without even an election of Tory MPs, never mind Tory members. He was the only candidate who stood standing after the nomination process. And that was in part because Boris Johnson didn't want to have another go because he realised he hadn't got as many nominations and the MPs were being against him, or they possibly could have run a grassroots election with Tory members. But Sunak did a very dodgy deal with Suella Braverman, Home Secretary. So she didn't stand, she backed him, and she'd been sacked by Liz Truss for security breaches. And a week later, she got her job back. So it's all a mess, and I think people have just kind of cottoned onto that. May not follow every spit and cough and little detail, but they just feel there's a kind of incompetence, and as they look at their mortgages, their loans, their rents, how much money they've got in their pockets, they know they took a huge hit and paid a very high price last year, which has continued through for Truss's lunacy.
Exactly, but definitely a bit of a sense of fin de siècle at the Tory Party conference, I think. Now, Alan says the Tory members aren't there because they can't get a train to Manchester. Not surprised, they probably can't get through the strike or picket lines either. Now, there's one thing that's got to happen. We've got to talk before we go into good news, which is Rishi's going to make a big speech. And in this speech, he has to take in tax cuts or tax rises. He has to take in HS2, schools, the NHS. He's got to say something about those things, and he's got to say something that would try and unite or have a big idea or sell something, or somehow this was going to be his big reset, wasn't it? This was going to, start the party up again, ready for an election, we heard. Have we got any sense of what's going to be in his speech and whether he's going to be able to pick his way through all that?
Yeah, I think the line is you've had the pain, don't throw away the gain and risk it with Labour. That's broadly. It is world events have created all these problems, not us being in power 13 years and the change, like it was Putin and COVID, which, in fairness, there is some explanation in some of the problems in Putin and COVID, but they just sound increasingly like excuses. But he seems to be thrashing around to just excite a base. So he's going, well, right, I'm going to have a war on motorists. Well, what war on motorists? Who's fighting it? If there's a war on motorists, you been in power for 13 years, is it you? But at the minute he's asked the elder helicoptering Sunak, he's asked to come down to earth and explain what this war on motorists is. Now he's going to resolve it, and he has a car crash because he can't explain it. He can't stop the boats. He hasn't stopped the boats. He should never have promised to stop the boats. He might be able to stem the boats, but he won't stop the boats. So then you just have more mad, horrible bigotry and prejudice and inflammatory language from Suella Braverman. And it's just like he's thrashing around. He's trying to get lots of little bits out to incite enough people to somehow get a base. Some people say actually it's not really about winning. It's about damage limitation now. But I think prime ministers, they talk to others. They always hope tomorrow is going to be a sunnier day somehow. But he says, let's be honest, let's be straight talking, let's take decisions for the long term. Well, it looked like something HS2. HS2 is the long term. He's now it looks like he's going to pull a plug, but he won't even say he's going to pull a plug on it. He says, let's talk about the future. Well, what's the future of HS2? I'm not saying. I mean, it is. You're in a city, Manchester, where it was going to come, and it now looks like it's not. And you won't talk about it. I suppose he wants to get out of Manchester before he says, right, it's not coming up. But a big infrastructure project, you can't get any more long-term than that. You can't get any long-term. So take the long-term decisions, but then he bottles it. Bottles it this week. It's cowardly, actually. It's not.
Also,
it's not just wrong. It's cowardly.
It's kind of bad politics as well, in a way. Just one point before we move on, because he's clearly not going to be there next year. He knows he's not going to be there next year. So whatever he decides to do, he's basically, firstly, he'll be, that would be kind of a legacy for him. He could say in history, that was me. I made the decision. And he'd be dumping the bill on the other guys, right? Which is surely in his best interests in the long term. But he's just not interested in planning for after his demise. He's not interested in having any kind of a legacy, it would seem. He wants to go off to Disneyland in California and stay there. But we'll have to see how it pans out.
He has no vision for the country. Really. I mean, he was a casino banker, a speculative banker, a merchant banker, but be careful how I pronounce that, and he's just a bean counter. And was it the definition of a cynic? The price of everything and the value of nothing. And I just genuinely believe that is him.
Yeah, wow. I don't think we'll have him for much longer anyway. But when's his speech? It's tomorrow, isn't it?
No, you got to wait. Just contain your excitement, Foxy. You got to wait until lunchtime on Wednesday.
Lunchtime Wednesday. Oh no, we've got Trust this afternoon anyway, so that'll keep us going for a bit.
We'll have to Liz for Labour.
Thanks, Liz, keeping us all on our toes. Anyway, thanks for taking us through all that, Kevin, and thank you for your questions, everybody. Do get into the comments if you've got anything else you want to ask about how the Tory conference is going, how the red trousers are looking this year, and whether there's fewer of them than usual, or perhaps they've turned into purple or yellow trousers. Those kind of things happen. But first off, we have found some good news in the world for you, and here it is. Now, this is a bit of good news, really. A survey by the M&S Bank has discovered that 61% of us have almost 100 quid in foreign notes and coins lying around at home. And this is because perhaps you haven't had time to change it back after your holiday, if you could afford a holiday. Perhaps you're unaware that they've grown in value because the pound has absolutely tanked recently. Or perhaps you just haven't had time to, you're holding onto it as a memento, something like that. But there's definitely, for 61% of us, 100 quid of something lying around your house if you need it. And most of us do. Now, Kevin, is this proof that if Jeremy Hunt wants to make ends meet, all he's got to do is ask Rishi to rummage down the back of the sofa and find whatever he's got left over from that summer trip to Disneyland?
Yeah, I bet you rich Rishi has got more than 100 quid. You'd bring up the average, wouldn't he? But it's quite, when you were saying that, I was thinking, I've got US dollars and euros, which are great. I'll go back and be able to spend. I'm not sure my Vietnamese dong will ever be spent again.
Kevin's dong lying in a drawer. No one's ever going to see it.
Oh dear! I wish I hadn't said that. I should have just said Vietnamese currency to you, and you twist it like that.
Well, I'm one of those people that when you get to the airport, I spend the last coins. I will find something, even if it's a pencil sharpener, that will take up the last few dib-dobs and go, that's it, it's gone. I'm clear. I'm done. I don't understand taking it home and sitting on it.
That's why they in departure lounge they charge you so much, because they know if you go, certainly Vietnam where I was there, the prices were enormous. They were just so much higher because they realised everyone will be just getting shot of their currency. Yeah, it was a nice little earner for the government.
The words enormous and dong are coming out of.
I've done it again, haven't I? Yeah, sorry.
It's been a long.
This was a family show.
It's going to take a long time. Perhaps it's a new policy anyway for the Tories. Make several £1 million if we all manage to find the stuff down the back of the sofa left over from holidays that we last were able to take, or a pencil sharpener I could always offer up if you needed it. Thank you for that, Kevin. I'm afraid we have to let you go and endure some Liz Truss, but I'm sure we'll get through it, and I expect you to hackle loudly from the back of the room, please. And we will all be back again on Wednesday morning, everybody, for another edition of the News Agenda. And we'll be looking forward to Rishi's speech and probably dissecting what Liz was up to. And goodness knows what else has been happening since then. So we'll see you on Wednesday. Until then, everybody. Tatty bye.
Bye.